Giving me a lot more conversation options. And I've also had Starborn options as well. So that's been really cool to see. So that actually leads me to, that's
Do
the
you know the
perfect
scientists
segue
out of
actually, guys, while we're sitting here.
The old married couple? Azad and Shireen, if I remember right.
Thanks for the
I've met
follows.
them a
Welcome
few
to the channel,
times. They
Skyname,
seemed a little
Tilsar,
eccentric, but were
Shillos,
otherwise
Sari's
quite
Dark.
nice.
That's them, yes.
Welcome to Twitch and
They're
YouTube. We are
apparently
multi-streaming
looking for some
today
help
for
with
anybody
their
who's
research.
new for the first
They
time.
made some kind of discovery.
Let me
Got in
segue.
trouble.
I was making a segue, but I got sidetracked because I want to get away from those people who were talking. So, this is my second playthrough of Shattered Space. The first playthrough... oh, that was a side quest. Well, we can go back there and pick that up in a minute. That'll be an activity. First playthrough was 16 and a half hours, and we got tons of stuff done. But I left the end of that because I play very roleplay specific playthroughs. So that character was a soldier, UC fanboy, and that was it. And I knew that I left quests on the table, and I left cosmetics on the table, and there were locations I didn't see and everything else. So we have spent the last, I think, 2 days, essentially about 15 hours or so of streams, of streaming to get up to New Game Plus, and get to where we are now, which is where we have Andreja. We did all her companion quests. We have her essentially romanced. We have not done her marriage ceremony stuff yet. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through Shattered Space a second time, basically wooing her as we go through, and hopefully we will culminate in the marriage ceremony when we get to the end of this. But what's most importantly about this second playthrough is I'm going through it with not only Starborn conversation options, which we've already seen a few of, but I also chose the Serpent's Embrace trait at the beginning when I did my New Game Plus recast, essentially, because I wanted this character to be not a zealot believer, but on the path of all must serve, sort of like where Andreja is. It made sense for me bringing her through as the main character. And the segue that I really want to do here is I have seen a certain individual has a video out where the title is something along the lines, like the thumbnail of it is "It's just so boring," I believe is the thumbnail title of their review of Shattered Space. And when I did the video yesterday, which is my joke about how it's the worst DLC of all time, and I made fun of the people who are out there saying it's this horrible DLC that you can beat in 3 to 5 hours, and I pointed out that Phantom Liberty as an example, because a lot of people were pointing at Phantom Liberty, and they're like, look how Phantom Liberty did this, that, and the other, and it was so much better than Shattered Space, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you do realize that you can beat the Phantom Liberty DLC in like 3 hours as well, or less, depending on the tricks that you use. An expansion is the totality of what it has to offer, not just that main storyline. So 16 and a half hours in the first playthrough. Now we're in our second playthrough with completely different traits taken. We've gotten completely different conversation options. We have completely different reactions to things because of the choices we're making in this playthrough. And I would counter that anyone who finds this to be boring, I would argue that you're not actually digging in to find what's actually here. Specifically, what is there to be bored by? I would argue that if you like Starfield and you like Bethesda RPGs, then everything that is the hallmark of Bethesda RPGs is here. Now, if you're not a fan of Bethesda RPGs, I would still argue that if you like RPGs in general, there's a lot of good stuff here. And when we start comparing like Starfield versus Cyberpunk versus insert your favorite RPG here, I always come back to, I don't want my RPGs to play the same way. I want them all to have different pros and cons. I want them to all have the things that they do that are their strengths, because that's what makes games unique, so I can go play different things. I'm definitely not bored because I know that this playthrough, for example, I didn't get the 2 companion crew members the first time through. I also did not do I believe it's the orphanage quest. I did not get, someone mentioned it earlier, someone asked me, I'm going to scroll up through chat here. Correct, United. Boring is such an empty criticism. Anyone can call a piece of media boring with no explanation. Johnny Boy had asked a little while ago, am I going for the Dragon Fang armor this time around? I didn't even know I still don't know what the Dragon Fang armor is. I know that it was mentioned during my first playthrough. People had talked about it in the streams. I've seen it briefly mentioned online in a few places. But I haven't gone out and found it yet. I didn't see it in the first playthrough. I know that I also didn't see all of the POIs the first time through. When we got done with our first playthrough, I had gone out and explored some of the POIs in the map. There's definitely a lot on this map alone, and then if you start going out to the edge of the map, you start getting the procedural stuff that's unwinding out from here. But I know there was like this massive monastery that we found. I want to say it's over here, like this structure right here, as an example, is this really cool zealot monastery that you can go explore. It's a massive POI, and there's a lot of cool stuff here that you can find and do, but it's off the beaten path, and you actually have to go out there and explore that. So what is it exactly that bores you about this game, content creator? Because I find there to be really entertaining storylines. It's really good voice acting. The writing has been pretty good. There have been a couple of standout quests that were better than other ones, but that's normal for any game I play. There's when you start getting into games that have lots of quests, and we can apply this same logic to Phantom Liberty, since that's the one a lot of people like to keep comparing this to. The Phantom Liberty DLC had a really cool main storyline, but if you've actually played the Phantom Liberty DLC and you start doing all of the side missions, as an example, the missions where you are going around town, like I forget what they're called. It's the driving missions that came with Phantom Liberty. You like get a car or a motorcycle or something, and you're supposed to deliver it within a certain. And there's different things that you have to do when you're driving the car. Sometimes it's defend, sometimes it's to outrun, sometimes it's to deliver. But there's these things that you do with those car deliveries, and you're earning faction with the car delivery guy to get the that really cool car that you get at the end of that. Those quests, for me, were repetitive and boring as fuck. But I did them anyway because I wanted the car at the end of it. So we can all pick the things that we have that we like or dislike within an expansion or a DLC or any game out there and say this is boring for me. That doesn't mean that it's boring for everybody. Some people really loved those driving missions in Cyberpunk 2077 in Phantom Liberty, and I'm certainly not going to be the person who wants to take that away from them just because for me it didn't resonate. Which is why you will never find me making a video on the internet about how Cyberpunk 2077's Phantom Liberty is a boring piece of shit because I didn't like this mission. It just feels really weird. GNU says Bethesda have a lot of haters of late, and I think Starfield not launching on the PS5 rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. I mean, that's certainly one aspect of it. United says, I got 3 new Marine spacesuits, not including the fanged one that you're talking about. GNU Compiler says, then we'll get the inevitable. I was wrong about Starfield videos. And United says, plus they're doing speed running the main quest and writing a review. And we, on the other hand, are actually playing the game. Correct. I think that anytime you speed run something, you're going to inevitably be bored because you're not actually experiencing the content. We talked about that a little bit during yesterday's video. It's a situation where if you've only seen 3 hours of what's there and you've space barred your way through, like the comment that triggered the video yesterday was someone saying dialogue isn't content. And I said, well, this was billed as a story DLC. When I bought the premium edition, when I pre-ordered this game a year plus or whatever it was ago, this DLC was specifically marketed as a story DLC. and I have gotten tons of story. Not only did I get 16 and a half hours of storyline my first run through, I also know for a fact that we left story on the table. This one, we just, I mentioned the orphanage one. These guys just around the corner a minute ago, they offered this quest. I gotta go find it now because it was, it popped up as like an activity, I think. Is it scientific method? A pair of scientists named Azad and Shireen Dubas are seeking a research assistant to help investigate a mysterious ailment affecting... Oh, if that's the one that's out at the... That might be the one that's way out in the wilderness. I think we did do that quest. That's the married couple that have you going around. If that's the one I'm thinking of, we may have done that one. Anyway, the speedrun thing. It's impossible to actually experience the totality of what an expansion has to offer if you're speed running through and trying to do something in 3 to 5 hours so that you can be first with your review. I would be bored too if I sat here and spacebarred my way through conversations and did a speed run all the way through to the end. The reason for that being there wouldn't be any context to the actions I'm taking or the storylines that I'm experiencing or the reactions that Andreja is having with NPCs, or the conversations that I'm having where my Serpent's Embrace trait or my UC Vanguard trait came into play on the last playthrough, my first playthrough. Like, there are so many things that can happen along the way, but you have to actually play the DLC for those things to unfold. And if you don't see those things, yeah, you're going to be bored because you didn't see it. You sped through in 3 to 5 hours and you skipped everything else that was there. So if I went and played Phantom Liberty tomorrow, because I know the other argument to this is people say, well, there's no new mechanics in Starfield, or Shattered Space. There's no new mechanics, and therefore it sucks. So if I did the speedrun version of Phantom Liberty and I didn't go do any of the side quests, I also would not experience any of the new mechanics. I would not get any of the new weapons or any of the new armor or any of the new items because I would, if I was doing a speed run through Phantom Liberty, I wouldn't see any of the cool things that they added to Phantom Liberty. I wouldn't hear the new music. I wouldn't meet half of the characters that got mocapped. I wouldn't see any of that stuff because I did a speed run. And as a result, I wouldn't actually experience the DLC as it was meant to be experienced. DBL Fantasy says you can get a quest from the shopkeeper at the depository, which is the missing brother one from the trailer. Pretty cool. I missed it my first time. I missed it my first time around. I don't have any knowledge of that. I'm going to write that down. Double Fantasy. Hold that thought. Oh, no. I did do the one you're thinking of. That's not true. The woman. Oh, no. I know which one you're talking about. We totally did do that quest because that's the one that had... that's the one where you go down into the mines and you meet the Redeemed for the first time. Oh, I about peed myself a couple times on that quest because of the jump scares. I do know which one you're talking about. I was thinking, wait a second, shopkeeper with a brother missing. Wait, did I do that? Yeah, I did do that one. So, but that's the thing. Like the Babylonia mentioned the orphanage quest. I didn't come across that. Supposedly that's over in the, what is it, the Halls of Healing or the I had to put the controller down here for a second. House of Healing. Oh, wrong map, guys. No, it's not. That was the right map. Hang on. The House of Healing, I think. Supposedly there's something in here with an old man and like an orphanage thing. Halls of Healing. So, like, I missed that my first playthrough. I missed the crew members that you can hire on the first playthrough. I definitely didn't clear all of the POIs. I guess just what I want to get at is I have to question if you call something boring, but you haven't actually played it, and you haven't experienced everything that's there, can you actually legitimately say that it's boring? Oh, it's a music box, not an orphanage? See, I play too many games and I get confused some things, because there's also a music box quest in another game we just played recently. Anyway, we're doing that quest this time around. And my objective with this playthrough is to see things from a different perspective. I want to see what are the new dialogue options I get for being A, Starborn and doing this on New Game Plus mode, and B, also I'm romanced with Andreja this time around, and C with the Serpent's Embrace trait. So that gives me different dialogue options during quests. There are certain quests where I took one outcome during my first playthrough. This time around, I'm going to be making different choices and getting different outcomes. So for me, it's very much about seeing as much of it as I possibly can before I make my final review. Now, I will make things like I always make an early thoughts video when I play a game. I've already done that. And in my early thoughts video, I was like, this is a 10 out of 10. It's great fun. Then I did my what I love about Shattered Space video, and that one I had dropped it down to a 7 out of 10 because there were some things that jumped out at me that weren't quite, my favorite things. It doesn't mean it's a bad DLC. But I could tell you now that coming back into this from a second perspective for a second playthrough, that 7 out of 10 is going to go up because now I'm seeing new things and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Now I understand this. Now I see this. Now I understand that. If you haven't actually played and you haven't actually immersed yourself in and seen the totality of what a DLC has to offer, I kind of feel like your review might not be valid. Now, of course, if something is boring for someone, that is a matter of personal taste to some degree. But I think it's very disingenuous to make reviews calling something boring or calling something bad when you've only put 3, 4, 5 hours into it and you just speed run all the way through. Because yes, Dr. Nick 2, that's one of the beauties of this game is it has replayability. It's not quite Baldur's Gate 3 level of replayability, but it's definitely, as United says, United just said, I've just finished the main quest last night. I've only done one side quest and visited one POI. This is at least going to be 2 months worth of content for me. And I know Babylonia had to step out for errands, but he had said something earlier where he's like, I know that like 25 hours is probably going to be the average playthrough for most people who really spend time in this DLC. But he's like, for me, this is going to be, I don't know if he quoted a number, but he's like, this is going to be multiple runs because I want to do the bounty hunter. I want to bring this character in. I want to see these options. I want to bring the mods in and have that be a part of it. I want to do all these things. Like I know Babylonia well enough, and he's a Bethesda fan. So he will definitely put probably, let's just say conservatively, he'll put 100 hours into the DLC through multiple playthroughs. And yes, you're kind of going to get the same end. Pretty much every game out there has the same end. Even Baldur's Gate 3, by the time you get to Act 3, there's really kind of only 3 endings that you're going to get. Even though you might have a lot of variation in those 3 endings based on the decisions you made through Acts 1 and 2, you still get funneled down to a handful of things by the end. Easy to Forget says one super easy way to get more content out of it is just to look at the achievement list. There's tons of ideas for things you complete which can push you in really cool directions. Yeah, I think I just think for me, I think that the boredom factor for people who claim that they are bored is because they did a speed run and they just didn't see everything. I think if you actually take the time to really see all of the hard work that went into this, you will find things that you enjoy. Will there be things that you might still find boring? Sure. Like talking about what I was saying earlier, like the driving quests in Phantom Liberty, not my thing, but I did them anyway because I wanted that car, that red car you get with the weapons and everything. Was it the red car or the black car? I think it was the black car, sorry. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is every game that we play, every DLC that we play, there's going to be things we love and things that are just kind of like, meh, I don't really care for that aspect. Just because you find one part of a game or a DLC a little slow or a little boring doesn't necessarily mean the rest of it is also going to be boring. But it's kind of hard to make that judgment call unless you've actually gone out there and played the rest of it to know whether or not it's boring or not. Which is why I do strive with my reviews to make sure that if I'm going to review something, I've at least put in my time. I could make my review now, and I feel like it would be a fairly good review because I did that first playthrough, 16 and a half hours. I saw everything that I needed to see to get a good enough, to get enough information to do a review. But I don't personally feel like I could make a final review until I've actually gone and seen some of the additional options that are there, like for conversations and quest endings and things of that nature. So um, I'm definitely not bored. I know there are things about Starfield that, like, the outpost building was kind of fun for a minute, but once I found out like the length of what it was going to take to make the cargo links work, I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. Like, that's boring to me. Like, having to go create all of these things to, collect helium-3 to get this thing constantly shipping things between these two pads, and I was like, that's way too much work. That is boring to me. But that's not the totality of Starfield. Starfield has so much more in terms of all of the other things that can be done. Outpost building wasn't for me, big deal. I also don't do a lot of shipbuilding. I think that the shipbuilding is cool. What's up, Pippin? But it's also not my favorite thing to do, so I don't feel compelled to go out there and do it a lot. I also don't call the game boring just because I don't like outpost building. Like, it's one aspect of a game that has 20 different aspects to play. So it's an interesting time we live in to see people making reviews after only 3 to 5 hours of something when there are dozens of hours of gameplay to be had if you actually took the time to play it. Food for thought. This will get clipped out, by the way, guys, for a YouTube video. So if you're tuning into the stream, we're going to continue on for a little longer. But if you're watching this over on YouTube after the fact, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Daily streams on YouTube and Twitch. There's a Discord, there's socials, there's a Patreon. Lots of different ways to keep up to date with what we're doing. And we play a lot of games. We're off to Diablo 4 on the 8th. And then New World Eternum, Black Ops 6, and Dragon Age the Veilguard all this month, rooming into Stalker 2 next month. We've got a really busy winter ahead of us. Indiana Jones, The Great Circle in December. It's a good time to be a gamer, guys. And I think that maybe if you're bored, you've got a lack of imagination. Because there's a shitload of fun to be had if you just let yourself have fun and play video games for entertainment. That's my take on it.